By all accounts, may contain sporadic profanity and occasional innuendo because we're no longer bound by the constraints of the FCC empire.
Zach, what if I told you today I've got something special for you? I am giving you the keys to this entire enterprise, and it is a choose-your-own-adventure Zach Krantz edition of By All Accounts.
Well, you couldn't have teased me any better than that. Let's get started. That's amazing.
Let's get to the open after that.
By All Accounts is not recorded in front of a live studio audience.
All right, so you've got some options here. I'm going to lay them out to you, but you for the entirety of the show, you are dictating exactly what direction we're going to take, okay? And in no particular order, Zach, here are your options, okay? Tua Tagovailoa and his contract, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The New York Knicks, NBA championship contenders,
right?
Okay? Bronny James, new LA Laker, or Matthew Tkachuk's great adventure. Where do you want to start? Any of those four? You tell me. What does your gut tell you? What does your insides tell you where you want to go?
I'll be honest with you. They're all very good, but how do we not start with the great adventures of Matthew Tkachuk and everything that's going on with him? I don't think he's slept since they won the Stanley Cup championship. This is one of the greatest party stories I've ever seen in my life.
Matthew Tkachuk's great adventure, Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers forward Matthew Tkachuk, the latest, at least the time of recording, because we have no idea where the hell he is right now. But the last time we saw the man in Publix, well, not Publix, in public, he might have been to a Publix, I don't know, Public, Raising Cane's, Pompano Beach.
And I'm celebrating the big win at Cane's.
I can't believe how many people are out here. It's very humbling.
3 words for cane sauce. My favorite sauce. Look at me. It's Matthew Tkachuk. We're serving up the chicken of champs. What combo can I get you? Box combo. How many? Here you go, champs. Box combo for a couple champs. Champs, boys, champs.
Can I get a box combo?
Yes, you can. Keep the party going, girls. We're champs. I was a little nervous about this, but they're starting me on ice, where I feel most comfortable. Hi, welcome to Cane's. What can I get you? Box combo coming right up. Enjoy. Yeah! I'm a hockey guy. I had to cool off. What's up, Todd? Having the best day over here.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, Matthew.
Thank you. It's historic, but best part is sharing it with everybody. This is Matthew Tkachuk. This right here is the champions. Check it.
Capitalism at its best right there.
Wow.
The Raising Cane's endorsement at Kachuckian Cheese on Twitter is our first account. Matthew Tkachuk at Raising Cane's. Now, Zach, there's context, desperate context that needs to be presented here. So Matthew Tkachuk was at Raising Cane's, presumably 1 hour after leaving 11 in Miami.
Right.
There is video of him for 3 to 4 hours chugging vodka, pouring liquor in Panthers fans' mouths, hugging Alexander Barkov and all of his teammates, hoisting cups into the air, just completely blasted. This is after he was in Fort Lauderdale on Tuesday morning, elbow room at about 7 a.m. with his dad, Keith Tkachuk, driving him in golf carts with the cup attached to it, pouring beer on people's heads, downing beers at elbow room, again, very early in the morning, taking the cup, swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, hanging out on the beach. The man admitted at the Raising Cane's to CBS Sports that he's only slept about 3 hours since the Panthers took to the ice in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. My biggest takeaway from this is I hope that money was worth it for Matthew Tkachuk. 2, for all those Canadians saying, where are all the Panthers fans to celebrate? There were like 7,000 Panthers fans at 10 a.m. at a chicken shop in Pompano on a weekday, okay? And 3, this is not me disrespecting Raising Cane's or trying to diminish the product. After an entire night of drinking to the point where I'm having trouble standing, and you can see it in the video, having trouble keeping my eyes open, having trouble putting together a cohesive thought, my voice is gone. The smell of Raising Cane's at 10 a.m. would probably send my stomach through my esophagus and then into a bush somewhere. Yeah. I don't know how he's done that. Matthew Tkachuk is an absolute warrior.
I mean, what'd you say? 3? I wouldn't even bet on the 3 hours sleep. It was probably in like 20-minute increments. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he sat down and slept for 3 hours. He just probably passed out for 30 at a time, 40 at a time. And then, oh yeah, how long did you sleep? Well, let's see. 2, 3, 4 naps. Yeah, about 3 hours since Monday night happened here. Listen, this guy's a party animal. He's taking full advantage of it. This should show everybody up there who was literally ripping the fans down here exactly what you said. How many people would show up at a random fried chicken place to see him and get served by him, and there'd be like a 3-hour wait to get a 3-piece with fries and coleslaw? You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, shout out to Raising Cane's for having pretty good sauce. Chicken tenders are okay. The sauce is immaculate. I love it because it reminds me of a sauce in Tallahassee at this place called Guthrie. So it's as close to that as possible. So I love them for that. But good God Almighty, show me another video in the last 20 years of people celebrating where there's been a 4-hour wait line at a chicken place, and I'll show you the best fans in the world down here in Florida.
Oh man! Now
it's just so ridiculous.
I do know some stone cold freaks that swear by Raising Cane's and may wait 3 hours just for the opportunity to eat that Texas toast with dip it in that sauce. That said, Matthew Tkachuk, that's next level stuff, man. That's as someone who's worked in radio, you've worked in radio for a long time. You do things for your partners. You kind of maybe sometimes to make sure you're still making the good old fashioned American buck from them. You'll do some things outside of your comfort zone. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk looks terrible. Let's be honest. In that video, yes, he's cleanly shaven. He's cleaned it up a little bit, but he looks awful. He looks like someone that's barely slept. He sounds like someone that was drinking about 2 hours beforehand, very, very heavily before he got to Raising Cane's. I don't know how he rallied. And to do what he was able to do, because he wasn't there for like 10 minutes, shook some hands, waved, and walked out. He was there for a couple hours, meeting people, serving food. And again, the mere smell, walking into that place with all of that alcohol in my system, and again, this is not a testament to the quality of their food, just the mere smell, it would have been overwhelming to me. I would have vomited all over the place. He is a stud.
Right. Our radio station used to be out there in Miami Gardens, and it was literally right next to I don't want to say the chicken place, but it was Finger Looking Good, the chicken place that was right next to us. And every morning they would start like the cooking or the getting the batter ready or whatever it was. And at 10 a.m. when I would walk out of the building, you could smell it like it was in your nostrils. That smell to me on a sober morning would get me a little sick to my stomach. I can't even imagine what it would be like you said, after basically a 96 or 72-hour bender of hardly any sleeping, just a couple naps, getting on boats, running all around the place. Like, the guy was absolutely bananas for a couple days. So good for him that not only, like you said, did he just go there, shake hands, sign a couple autographs, and leave. The dude was in the kitchen. The dude was in where they were making the food. Like, it's a lot for that. So my hat's off to him. But let me tell you, I can't tell you the last time we've had a party animal like this in Matthew Tkachuk. I mean, this is an insane story. It's amazing, and I am so happy that he's a Florida Panther doing this and not another team where we're kind of making fun of him, because I love exactly what he's doing. Honestly, I can't wait to see what he does next. Forget about what he's done. The next part is my favorite part of this whole story.
Matthew Tkachuk got traded from Calgary, immediately signed an 8-year contract extension. What the hell money is Raising Cane's paying this guy to sacrifice his body and his mental health to hit a Raising Cane's at 10 a.m. after being at 11 until about 6 in the morning? It's incredible. And if Raising Cane's has those deep pockets, let me tell you, guys, might need to talk about how to collaborate here with by all accounts.
I will eat the sauce the entire podcast. I will just dip at the end. I will make the deal with them like Matthew Tkachuk did somehow, some way. If Matthew Tkachuk doesn't own at least 15% of that restaurant now, I'll be really shocked at this point because I don't think a $2,000 check is going to get him there for 4 hours like it would normally get maybe someone else or whatnot. That's not going to happen. But I'm letting everyone know at Raising Cane's right now. I like your chicken tenders. I love your sauce. You could have a cup of it here during our stuff. And every once in a while, you'll just see me dip and taste. Perfect sponsorship opportunity here. I don't have my sign on the wall that says your sponsorship here because the horse is there still. But I'm telling you right now, Raising Cane's, contact Ken, contact myself. Let's get this going. We should get this started next week.
Also, too, like, fuck the dabbling in this. You know those, if you're on a farm, those metal troughs for the animals, whether it's water or food in there?
Yeah.
I'll fill that whole goddamn thing with the sauce and sit in it and bathe in it while we do the show every single time. For that kind of money that I suppose is being sent Matthew Tkachuk's way to draw him to do that after what he's been through the last couple of days, suggests to me it was well worth it. So let's talk business. All right, Zach, we've got Matthew Tkachuk's great adventures out of the way. Choose your own adventure, Zach Krantz edition here on By All Accounts. Do you want to go to a contract? Do you want to go to New York Knicks, NBA championship contenders, or do you want to go to Bronny James, new LA Laker?
I want to go Bronny here. I'm excited to talk a little bit about Bronny here. Yeah, let's choose my own adventure over to LA and La La Land with the James family.
With the 55th pick of the NBA draft in the second round, the LA Lakers select Bronny James in the least surprising thing imaginable in draft history. Bronny James and LeBron James together in Los Angeles. But there's a little bit of a twist to it. It didn't just so happen that Bronny was magically available in the second round for the LA Lakers. He didn't fall into the Lakers' laps. No, actually, it turns out Rich Paul, LeBron James agent, Bronny James agent, Clutch Sports, he strong-armed, mafia'd Bronny James to LA. This is from Bob Myers at ESPN NBA. The draft coverage, Bob Myers with the breaking news of the entire draft as ESPN went on the air yesterday.
Promised at the top of the show that 30 minutes in, you would have an update for us on Bronny James. And we're 56.
Well, I don't get a chance to say anything.
So would you like to say it?
Stephen A. talks a lot. There's there's other stuff going on.
Break some news. Stop whining.
Yeah, it sounds like
listen, exactly. Okay, fine. I will say
15 seconds.
Right now, Rich Paul's calling teams, don't take Bronny James. He's telling them, do not take him, okay? He's saying, don't take him. If you take him, he's going to Australia. So he has a plan and he has a place.
But he's not telling the Lakers.
I don't know if he's telling one team that.
Mark Tatum.
So the revelation that Rich Paul was dictating, he was puppeteering the entire time for this. One, I'm not surprised at all. Two, I wish a team would have called bullshit on Rich Paul. Said, all right, you want to try and strong arm me? Well, I'm going to take Bronny James, and then the Lakers can give me a couple first-round picks if they want to get Bronny. Like, I have zero confidence that Bronny James would end up going to Australia. There is not a chance on God's green earth LeBron would be okay with Bronny going to Australia to start his pro basketball career. Bleep that. There's absolutely no way. But we'll get to the nepotism conversation in a second, okay? The fact that arguably the greatest player in the history of the sport, his son, who scored 4 points last season, averaged 4 points a game in his lone season at USC, not only went to the draft combine, but then decided to stay draft eligible and then gets drafted. And then again, the same player who averaged 4 points a game in his lone college basketball season at a team that didn't even come close to making itself a championship contender, then is having the most powerful agent in the sport go full Godfather to make sure that that draft pick goes exactly where that draft pick wants to go. That is an uncomfortable and a very fundamental problem in my mind for the NBA. The Bronny James clown show, and this has nothing to do with Bronny James. This is not a Bronny James problem. This is a adults in the room problem, okay? That makes the NBA look so bad, what this circus turned into. I am aghast at just how bold and ridiculous this entire thing turned out.
I almost wish at this point that there's an entire investigation into this, because if the NBA finds one GM that comes out and basically says, yeah, that was basically told to us, how does the Lakers and not the Lakers as much, but how does Rich Paul not get in trouble through the NBA at this point and get some sort of like 1 year suspension from doing any,
want to know why? Because he's the most powerful man in basketball.
I get it. I totally get it. But if this was true, you're right. It's 100%. It's not even close to this point that Rich Paul and basically LeBron by his side run the NBA. The major players are with them. They control stuff, but this is just a different situation where you're right. I'm not blaming Bronny for this. I'm blaming LeBron and I'm blaming Rich Paul for this, because if LeBron didn't want this to happen, it wouldn't have happened. If LeBron just wanted him to go wherever and be wherever, he would have been on another team, probably not drafted, maybe an undrafted, try to get on G League type of guy. And that's fine. If this was really forced like this and there was proof of this, like Rich Paul needs to get handed down something by the NBA. It's just absolutely ridiculous how this happened like this. I felt good at the fact that the story looks great. LeBron and Bronny together. We kind of saw this a long time ago when basically the comments came out, but non-comments from LeBron about I'm going to stay, whatever team gets, Bronny, I'm probably going to go play for them at that point. If that was the case, then I would have just said hands on deck, all hands on deck for a second round pick. Why not, if we can get LeBron to come play down here, draft his son for a year or two and be fine. The entire situation, the entire story about Bronny is absolutely ridiculous. It's stupid. It's the fact that this kid probably shouldn't be in the NBA this year. When I say shouldn't, he should not be in the NBA this year. He should be a G League or a college kid for at least one more year, if not two. He had a major thing happen to him with the cardiac arrest a year ago. If he gets cleared and everything is fine, that's okay. But come on with this report coming out. This report was the worst thing to happen to the story. If it didn't and he got drafted by the Lakers, we would all be going, we knew this would happen. That's fine. The fact that Rich Paul came out and said this dude's going to go to down under to go play in Australia if you draft him, you're right. I would have done the same thing you did. I would have called the bluff and in the second round said, okay, we got 3 picks here in the second round. We don't really need much. We're just kind of getting talent here, acquiring what we can. Let's do one of these picks on Bronny and let's see what happens. Let's see if LeBron knuckles up and actually wants to come play with his son or not. I wouldn't have let him get to the Lakers if I was one of those GMs. But this story is wild how it came out like this. And it's so bad look on this James family. And it sucks for Bronny more than anyone else.
Well, get out the salt. Go ahead and turn on the microwave. You can take the pretzel out of the freezer and you can heat it up. For those of you that still do that, you buy pretzels, put them in the freezer, sprinkle the salt on, a little water on top, put them in the microwave. I don't know who eats soft pretzels at home any longer, but I'm sure some of you do. But my whole point is people are twisting themselves into pretzels. It is full-fledged pretzel time to try and justify what the Lakers did with Bronny James, what Rich Paul and LeBron orchestrated with Bronny James, and basketball fans, sports fans as a whole, Zach, they love self-made, dedicated to the grind, something out of nothing, dictating his own legacy and future. But they're also great with how this whole Bronny thing went down. You can't have it both ways, okay? You can't. Bronny James is not self-made. I hate to say it, but there is nothing about Bronny James. And yes, he has worked hard. He is a basketball talent. But in this situation, he does not, under any circumstance, deserve to be on the LA Lakers or drafted into the NBA. Period. period. There is nothing about Bronny James' game, nothing he has done since he left high school and went to college that any sane person would say, man, this dude's ready for the league. He is getting allowed to mature and develop in an NBA facility because of his last name. There is no argument against that. There is no debate to be had. So if you're one of those self-made, dedicated to grind type of people, and there's a lot of you out there, you're better off saying, yeah, I believe in that, but I'm also okay with Bronny having this handed to him because I'm a LeBron fan. Like, just stop twisting yourself in a pretzel and cutting off circulation and making yourself uncomfortable, and just admit I'm a LeBron fan, and this defies everything I say about what I believe an elite athlete should be. Is that fair? I feel like that's fair. Like, just acknowledge that you're wearing your LeBron glasses. Okay.
Right. You just pick one way or the other. You can't go both ways in this circumstance. And I get that, but that's what this comes down to. You could be upset as much as you want. You could do that. And the grinder out there should be upset because they've worked hard. I'll tell you what, whoever wasn't drafted in this draft, the next 10 top guys, whoever was the best available after the draft, I'd be pissed off if I was one of them because he took one of your spots that should have been yours, that you worked hard for more than likely. And it's no disrespect to Bronny himself. He's just not an NBA ready player yet. The best is when you read all of these things now on what can Bronny bring to the Lakers, and all these reports from all these analysts are like, well, he's 2 or 3 years from hopefully being able to participate. And I'm like, 2 or 3 years? How many guys get drafted? And you're like, within 3 or 4 years from now, we're hoping he can contribute and be a player on this team. I don't know if that happens often anymore. It used to be, when there was when the draft, like in the NFL, was like 15 rounds and you draft a guy and you think, all right, maybe he can make the team. Probably not. That's fine. Or in the NBA, that second round pick because there are plenty of second round picks that are shining stars. Jovic, the Joker's one of them. But in this case, does anyone out there who covers the NBA, if they weren't afraid of the backlash from Rich Paul and from LeBron at this point, because a lot of these analysts and guys want LeBron and Rich Paul on their team if they need something from them, would any of them come out and destroy this pick like most people that are not worried about LeBron's friendship like me and you or Rich Paul's? I don't know if that's going to end up happening because of LeBron's power in this NBA. And Rich Paul, like you said, if LeBron runs it from the player side, Rich Paul runs it from the outside looking in. Yeah. It's a dangerous thing for the NBA for this sort of to happen, but it's more dangerous for all the other guys around the league. The fact that these two guys realistically could run things for the Lakers team, not the Pistons or one of these smaller market teams, not Oklahoma City or Sacramento, where in that case, maybe the owner says, hey, we got to do whatever you want. Whatever you want is good. It's the damn Lakers, and he's running the Lakers.
We flat out said J.J. Redick takes the Lakers job. Guess who the coach is? LeBron James. And it's never been more evident. Now, have fun with this, J.J. Have fun, J.J. Redick. Mr. Drop the F word at your introductory press conference is unprofessional. It just so Duke arrogant, just so pretentious, that J.J. Redick, by the way. But I'm glad you brought up the analysts, because you're right. No high-profile NBA analyst, reporter, journalist is going to call this out. Want to know how I know? Because the most high-profile journalist that covers the NBA carried water for Rich Paul and LeBron James and Bronny James on ESPN, on national television, during draft coverage, and that's Adrian Wojnarowski at ESPN NBA, the nepotism ward. And we've you can't talk about the lack of merits of Bronny without also straddling the line of the discussion about nepotism. But nepotism came up. The word came up. And listen to this from Adrian Wojnarowski. And this is a man who has a stellar career as a journalist. But boy, if this is not some of the most pathetic pandering to an NBA agent, a sports agent, a top player in a sport that I've ever seen, then I don't know what is. This legitimately made me sad from Adrian Wojnarowski, who dropped this is okay because this happened. It was really, really sad. Here's Adrian Wojnarowski.
He's
charges, people talking about nepotism.
No,
the NBA is full of nepotism.
Full of it.
The ownership level, front offices, coaching.
Yep.
I don't want to hear it all of a sudden because of Bronny James's father plays for the Lakers. Right. It is rampant in this league.
That is a
and at the same. No, go ahead.
I could not find that more disingenuous. And Adrian Wojnarowski has to know how disingenuous that point is, that angle is. He's talking about nepotism in the front office. He's talking about nepotism in ownership. He's probably even talking a little bit about nepotism when it comes to coaching in the NBA. Surely someone as smart and as in tune with common sense as Adrian Wojnarowski is can understand the difference between that nepotism he's talking about, which is also bad, and the nepotism of a guy who clearly has not been drafted into the NBA on his merit, clearly drafted in the NBA because of his last name, and strong-armed, mafiosoed into the NBA by his agent Rich Paul, making threats to ensure that this non-merit player gets to the team he wants to go to. Surely Adrian Wojnarowski can tell the difference. And I keep seeing, Zach, I keep hearing, I don't care what you guys think. If you can't understand why it's cool that a father and son get to play together, that just makes you a sorry human being. No. I don't want to hear that, because anybody with a brain, a full functioning brain, will say, yeah, it is awesome that LeBron and Bronny get to play with one another. From a core human standpoint, absolutely it's awesome. But that's not all that this is. Yes, it's cool that they get to play together. It also is wildly uncool that Godfather Rich Paul dictated how this was going to happen, threatened other teams, and it just so happens Bronny doesn't even have close to the merit-based accomplishments to get to the point that he is at after this NBA draft. It can have 1,000% be both things. I will not be shamed for being critical of Rich Paul and LeBron James. This is not Bronny's fault, but the adults in the room failed badly, and now people like Adrian Wojnarowski are going to sit there and they're going to try and scold me and tell me that what I'm seeing is actually incorrect and give me a what if. What a waste of time. Don't waste my time.
Right. And I would have had a follow-up there to Wojnarowski and just said, okay, that's fine. If that's what you're thinking and that's what you want to say about this whole thing, that's fine. What do you think about this, either rumor or truth, that Rich Paul is the one that dictated where he was going to go and be drafted and told other teams he won't play for you? If you draft him, he's going to Australia. What do you think about that when it comes to nepotism? We've seen it before. We see guys in the league where maybe on the coaching staff, you see like them hire a son or someone like that. And that's, like the Silas family, Paul Silas and his son were coaching them. That's fine. We saw it with Doc Rivers and Austin Rivers, where Doc Rivers, I guess, traded for his son, then gave him a contract or whatnot, and then traded him off a little bit after that. That's fine also. That's all nepotism, and we see that, and that's fine. Austin Rivers did get drafted on merit into this league, whether you thought he was a good player or not, whether you thought he went too high or not, that's fine. In this circumstance, everything I think I would have been okay with, seriously, if this Rich Paul thing didn't come out. Like, that's the only thing to me that just hurts this entire situation. Did Bronny have the merit to get drafted? No, I don't think he was a top 60 or 65 player in this draft, especially with overseas kids and things like that. That's fine. If they would have taken him that late without this Rich Paul thing, we would have all shook our heads and said, we knew it. We knew this was going to end up happening. That's fine. This report comes out and poo-poos the entire situation, really makes it hard for Bronny to ever make it in the NBA unless he becomes a true superstar. It's a bad legacy thing for LeBron, and even worse for the NBA, like I said before, because of the fact that the NBA now, they have to look into this, and they're going to have to ask other GMs, did Rich Paul have communication with you about Bronny James, and did he say in any words that if you draft him, he won't play for you and will go to Australia? If one GM in the league, any GM from any of these teams, comes out and says, yeah, that actually was said to me, then there has to be something that goes on. Now, I'm not saying Bronny doesn't get to play in the NBA or LeBron. No, Rich Paul needs to be disciplined for this, because this is the worst look for the NBA it's been in a long time, because now you have an agent dictating things on one side, and it just sucks. It really does suck, and it sucks for Bronny so much that his night that probably just could have been his to have, whether he makes the NBA or not, the 1% of the 1% that get drafted in the NBA, and always there'll be an asterisk saying he got drafted by the Lakers because he was strong-armed there and was threatening other teams. The whole situation sucks. I feel bad for Bronny. I feel worse for the NBA at this point.
The same fairy tale storyline would have existed if they just signed him as an undrafted rookie.
Right.
And would there still have been the detractors, the nepotism, Bronny getting special privileges? Absolutely. Yeah. But the firestorm, and this is the thing too. They knew the criticism that was going to come with this type of behavior. And I promise you, Zach, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We are 2 months, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 2 days away from someone in the LeBron James camp, maybe even LeBron himself, talking about the haters, the people that don't want to see them succeed, the people that root against them in response to the criticism that they're getting for this Bronny James circus. When they created the entire thing, they're the reason for all of this. The calls are coming from inside the house, LeBron and Rich Paul. But here's the thing, Rich Paul didn't do anything wrong. So he's not going to be disciplined, because there's nothing to punish Rich Paul for. He threw his weight around, and whether that's right or wrong, that's a whole separate conversation. I saw yesterday the comparison. How is this any different from what Archie Manning did with Eli Manning when the Chargers were going to draft Eli Manning, and they said, nope, not happening. Make sure I go out to the Giants. This is different because, one, why did Archie Manning not want Eli Manning to go to the Chargers? Because they had talked with the Ryan Leaf camp and people around the Chargers and didn't trust that the Chargers were going to be competent enough to handle the career of Eli Manning, to help Eli Manning realize his potential and put together a system that was going to elicit success, not only for Eli, but for that football franchise. Right. And so Archie Manning, as unpopular as it comes off and as petulant as it comes off, made a business decision for his son. This is a business decision as well, but this is wildly different because Eli Manning was a top flight draft pick, first rounder, sure thing, coming out of Ole Miss. Bronny James is, well, someone who's living a fantasy camp right now. That's the difference.
Eli Manning was going to be the first or second pick no matter what in that draft, no matter what. Bronny, if this Rich Paul thing doesn't happen and the threat to play for the Lakers or not play doesn't happen, I don't think if the Lakers if they don't pick him at 55 or whatever it was, I don't think he gets drafted. I don't think he gets drafted. The Eli situation, different business decision, and what you said was 100% accurate. This was just so much different. That's the same kind of comparison, but it's apples and oranges because it's just unbelievable what happened with this could have been such a fun story to watch play out if Bronny developed into a good player and this and that. Instead, this will be looming over him his entire career until it's all said and done, especially if he's a mediocre to less than mediocre player in the NBA. If his career doesn't go 15 years and he's not an all-star, which the expectations I'm sure are for him at this point, it's just going to be that cloud over his head forever. And his dad had something to do with it. Even worse than all this, because LeBron had to okay this. There's no way LeBron sat back and Rich Paul made all these decisions by himself. That doesn't happen. I don't care how powerful Rich Paul is. LeBron is the puppet master in all of this. And if LeBron allowed this to happen, shame on him at this point. And you're right. Rich Paul's not going to be disciplined. I think he should be, but he won't be. And this whole story is such shit now because of this. And it goes back to what we said 18 times so far. I don't feel bad for anyone but Bronny because his night was taken from him because his dad and his dad's best friend, his godfather, decided this is where you're going to play. We want you to play with your dad. We'll make it happen. Don't worry. Just sit back, relax. Your number will be called at some point. Stupid shit.
I 1,000% respect LeBron taking care of his son.
Of course.
That's not what's in question here. Me as a father, Would I probably do something similar? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Like make sure that my son is taken care of. And I've seen a lot of that. Oh, wouldn't you do the same thing for your son? Yes.
Right.
But there's context. Like everything, there's context that needs to be presented here because Bronny, LeBron and Rich Paul used Bronny to take away a draft pick from somebody who was significantly more deserving. So on the other side of the coin, how would you feel if you were a father and you helped your son to this level as an unknown and nepotism came around and John Gotti godfathering came around and erased that opportunity for your son? How would you feel? So we can play both sides of the coin here. But the fact remains, for all the sports fans, grind, get it done, nose to the grindstone, self-made. None of those are what this is. It's just not. And so until you're willing to acknowledge that you're being hypocritical as a fan by preaching those things and being okay with how this played out with Bronny, then you're being disingenuous and you're being a complete phony. By all accounts, subscribe, youtube.com/@allacountshow, youtube.com/@allacountshow, the podcast, rss.com/podcast/allacountshow. Would you like to go Knicks NBA championship contenders, or do you want to get into Tua?
No, let's go Knicks. I want to end with Tua. I like that. Yep.
At Ashley Nicole Moss, who is an FAU grad. By the way, an FAU grad who's doing way better than I am career-wise currently. CBS Sports, Ashley Nicole Moss, not hiding it. She's a Knicks fan. She wants everyone to know it, and she is declaring that the Knicks are going to win the chip. They're going to win the chip at Ash Nicole Moss.
Going up yesterday, and rightfully so. I cannot wait for basketball to be back. The Knicks are winning the chip, baby. The Knicks are winning the chip. I'm so excited about this. I know that a lot of people have been saying, the Knicks gave up too much for Bridges, and he's not that kind of a player. But what they fail to realize is that when you go ahead and you draft players, it's not a guarantee. It's not like you have the second coming of D. Wade and he's ready to go, or LeBron James and he's ready to go. There is a developmental period that you have to go ahead and take into consideration whenever you draft a player, right? The Knicks are in a situation now where they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, one of the best teams in the NBA, and time is not the essence. They want to win, and they want to win now. They want to compete, and they want to compete now. And Bridges is the player that helps them do that. Great defender, has the ability to shoot the three ball, has the ability to be another body on that floor.
I like that analysis, by the way. Has another ability to be a body on the floor.
Right,
so that's
so do I.
Yeah.
Right. So do I.
Right. Zach Grant has the same exact resume from that standpoint as Mikal Bridges. Ashley Nicole Moss celebrating the acquisition of Mikal Bridges. The Nets and Knicks make a deal. Now I just want to look real quick at what the Knicks gave up to get Mikal Bridges, and it is downright stunning. To be honest. So another Villanova product heads to the Knicks. So here it is. The Knicks give up 4 unprotected first rounders, 25, 27, 29, and 31. A protected 2025 first round pick as well. And the unprotected 28 pick swap and a 2025 Brooklyn second round selection are all involved in this deal. The Knicks gave up draft pick after draft pick after valuable draft pick for a guy who averaged 19 points per game a year ago for the Brooklyn Nets and Mikal Bridges. The New York Knicks are good. They're one of the best teams in the East. One of the best teams in the NBA. At full strength, I'm not so sure about that, but fine. As far as this New York Knicks, they're going for a championship talk. The Knicks are going for it because that's it for any draft capital. Like, this was the move. This was the move to put the Knicks over the top. With those assets that they gave up, they think that this is the final piece, going to get Mikal Bridges, okay? So what the Knicks are going to attempt to do is something that, in my opinion, maybe hasn't been done since the mid-2000s with the Detroit Pistons, and that is win an NBA championship with all outstanding role players. The New York Knicks, let's call them what they are. They're a team full of really good role players. They're a team that, under this current tutelage of Tom Thibodeau, has not been able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. They have not been able to get out of the second round. They are Joel Embiid's Philadelphia 76ers, okay? And they're putting their stock in being the best collection of role players that the NBA can offer. It's bold. It's bold. And I'd be willing to bet that any other team not based in New York, or at least in the Northeast, wouldn't be getting this type of fanfare for a move like this. But because it's the Knicks, because there is such pro-Knicks sentiment among sports media, especially NBA media, they're being considered championship contenders. Good move? Yes. Does it give more of a gap between the Knicks and the Heat? Unfortunately, I'll admit, yeah, the way things are currently constituted, yes. But the Knicks are trying to do something unconventional, and they're not known for revolutionizing their approach in professional basketball in the NBA. The Knicks are not known for that, okay? They are trying to do something that only the Pistons have done in the last 25, 30 years or so, and that is win an NBA championship with all role players. What I'll say to Knicks fans is enjoy. The hype will be fun for you, but also good luck, because to me, this still has a ceiling on top of the Knicks, this move. And that ceiling, I don't think, is higher than the Larry O'Brien trophy.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Jalen Brunson's the only one on the team that you could almost put into that like next tier category of really good player, maybe potential down the line at this point in a year or two become a superstar in this league. It's possible, sure. The rest of the players, like you said, it's a perfect way to put it. They are a bunch of really good role players, and you need a star. And if Brunson's that guy, they have a shot. Without that, Mikal Bridges, to me, makes them a little bit better. Absolutely. Does it make it better than when everyone's healthy in the East? More than a 3 or 4 spot again? Probably not. They were the 2 last year. A lot of injuries in the Eastern Conference that gave them that 2 spot more than anything else. Plus, a lot of teams at this point we know when the Milwaukees of the world, who have Dame and Giannis and Embiid in Philly with that team, when they're not kind of trying during the regular season sometimes because they just want to get to the playoffs or they want to get there healthy, it shows you what the regular season means. And the regular season meant everything to the Knicks last year, everything to the Knicks to get that top spot, that 2 spot to be there. That's fine. Now, the way I look at this is we've said this for 2 decades now with the New York Knicks. No star wants to go there. Like, no stars want. Imagine what this would have been like if the Knicks had so much money to spend and so many superstars available. We went through that in 2010, 2011, when everybody went to the Heat and everyone went everywhere else and nobody went to the Knicks. Will the Knicks get to get Amari and like Carmelo Anthony? That lasted like a year and a half. That was terrible. Every guy was injured. That didn't work. The Knicks just aren't the premier team in the league where guys are going to go. This is the way they have to do it. This is the way they have to try to build it. They're working on the fact that, like you said, if we get a bunch of top tier 2 guys, put them out there, and we have 10 of them out there, and 5 each time we need a substitute, maybe that can work. I don't know. Like you said, revolutionize the way this team plays. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to go from top heavy to kind of mid-level, and let's see what happens from there. I love the Knicks fan out there. Like Ashley was just on there. Like, my brother's a huge Knicks fan. My brother was lighting up the text message in our group chat with all the Heat fans in it the last couple days. Look what we did. We're so much better, this and that. That's fine. The hype is there. We love the hype. When it comes down to it at the end, and the Knicks are in a game 7 against Philly, Boston, Milwaukee, Miami, or Indiana next year, who do you think is going to be the betting favorite? Not the Knicks, because all these other teams have a star at the end of the game that has the ball in their hands, that's what you want. And here, are you really worried about at the end of a game in a game 7, Dante DiVincenzo or Mikal Bridges or one of these guys? Brunson, it's the same thing I come up with. Brunson's the one guy I do think has that capability to get there. He's not 100% there yet. And I love Jalen Brunson. I think he's a good player. But man, oh man, I love when the Knicks hype train is at full speed, and it is now, this entire summer is going to be to the Knicks fan what it is usually to the Jets fan out there that has a really good offseason, and they won the offseason. They won the OTA Super Bowl. Right now, the Knicks fan thinks they won free agency Super Bowl and the NBA championship. Fantastic. You still got to play 82 games in a playoff series. We'll see what these guys come up with at that point. I wouldn't bet on them now, especially if everyone's coming back in the East healthy, which they should be. But for the Knicks right now, this is the best you could do. So the Knicks fan, go out and celebrate, enjoy it. We'll see what happens when the season starts, when the playoffs start next year, when the midseason tournament goes on next year as well.
I get why Knicks fans get excited about this Knicks team, but because of the way it's constructed, this roster is constructed with a bunch of role players, they play hard as hell. And watching them, I totally understand the pride that washes over the Knicks fan when watching these dudes absolutely get after it, because they overcome not being superstars, elite talents, by the fact that they're coached by maybe the best example over the last 20 years of a guy who's going to squeeze every last damn ounce of ability and energy out of his guys in Tom Thibodeau. And they like playing for him. Like, this is what they know is the hardcore grind, do it for Gotham, that entire thing. I get the pride that comes with it. But wait,
let me stop you. Let me stop you real quick. What happens next season? They're the number 2 seed, hypothetically. Number 2 seed again, play Philly, the Heat as a 7 seed, Indiana as a 7 seed. Something happens, they get there. They get bounced out. How long does Thibodeau stay on board knowing that you got 9 guys on that team for Villanova that all played for Jay Wright, until he takes that job, where they try to get him to take that job, and that Knicks team really goes to Villanova? Like, how long till that happens? Until the Knicks fan also wants that to happen too, because all the Villanova guys. My brother says it all the time. He can't wait at this point for either Thibodeau to take him to a championship or Jay Wright to jump on board. That's what's going to end up happening. You see that. You almost see that in the writing at this point.
Jay Wright will never be an NBA championship head coach. I'm going to say that right now. Like,
Probably
Jay
right.
Wright will never be an NBA championship head coach. But I get the Knicks' pride in this, and I understand the excitement. But the way I look at it, you barely got by an extremely injured 76ers team in the postseason, okay? Does this make you better on paper than the Sixers? Like, both teams fully healthy, and you can never count on the 76ers, especially Embiid, to be fully healthy. So I think it's a fair question. Like, the Knicks are better than the 76ers. Not by much, though. Not by much. Are they better than the Indiana Pacers? I think that that's negligible. I think that that's absolutely negligible. I don't think you can make an overwhelming point that Mikal Bridges joining the Knicks makes them fully better. Maybe they're a length ahead heading to the 3/4 poll, but I don't know if it's much more than that. Does it make them better than the Celtics? Not a chance. And then, are they better than the Nuggets? No. Are they better than the Mavs? No. We'll see what happens with Kyrie. Are they better than Minnesota? No. So, again, I get being excited, but this move, it's moved the ceiling of the Knicks franchise, but up just a little bit. Just a brief little remodeling. It hasn't blown the roof off. This is not an unlimited ceiling for the New York Knicks. And this is it. Like, this was the move, because you don't have anything else after this.
Right.
And unless you start dealing some of these guys, you don't have anything anymore. So, Knicks fans, sure, be excited, but understand this hardly means that a championship is in your future. Right. And that brings us to the curious case of Tua Tagovailoa. And our boy, Jeff Darlington, ESPN, on Twitter, our next account at ESPN NFL. He set Dolphins world on fire as he walked back his confidence that the Dolphins and Tua were coming close to a resolution of their current contract commiseration. And, Jeff Darlington has some concerns about the distance between where Tua is and where the Dolphins are. And it all concerns that ever-important market.
Words that are looming over this contract negotiation, and they're the words that came out of Tua's mouth. The market is the market. He said that after Jared Goff had signed his deal and before Trevor Lawrence signed his. The complicated part of this is the Dolphins could point at that Jared Goff deal and say, well, we're not the Detroit Lions. We're not making that decision. But when Trevor Lawrence then leapfrogs it, you've got a situation because right now, the Dolphins are not offering the contract that is the market value based on those other deals that were done. So if this gets there, it's just going to require more negotiations. And we're not to panic point just yet. I just think that my optimism earlier has to be slightly scaled back at this point, given all of those factors currently in play.
All right, so that obviously had a lot of freak out attached to it, a lot of fretting attached to it. Maybe the Dolphins and Tua aren't really all that close based on the M word, the market, and what Tua deserves or what he doesn't deserve, and Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence and what they got. The initial consumption you had of this, Zach, did you feel great terror? Did you feel great frustration? How have you been able to take this and process this over the last couple of days?
Unfortunately, this is a typical Dolphins move right here. Typical Dolphins move by management. Chris Greer has done a pretty good job making some big trades and bringing in some big names. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, even Bradley Chubb at the time. He's done some good moves. His drafting was a little bit off. I thought that, honestly, a year and a half after that 2020 draft with Tua and Austin Jackson, Noah Igbenogany, Chris Greer should have been fired, and they should have restarted with him at that point. I thought he absolutely dropped the ball with Christian Wilkins, regardless of what they offered Christian Wilkins at the time. The guy was a superstar in your team, superstar in the locker room, and you had to kind of keep him around. Someone overpaid for him, that's fine in the Raiders, but you had a chance to keep him here, and you let it go too long. It's the same thing now happening with Tua. This deal should have been done months ago after Burrow and Herbert made their deals, so you could just secure that money where it was right after Herbert, give him $1 more guaranteed than Herbert, he would have been fine. Now you had all these other quarterbacks come out, Goff and Lawrence, and Dak Prescott's up for one soon. And every time one signs, it gets a little bit more pricey for the Miami Dolphins. And I think they had a number that they wanted to give Tua, and now that number is all the way higher than they thought because of all these other quarterbacks. It's a bad job by Dolphins management. If they really want Tua here for the next 3 to 5 years, whatever the case may be, a terrible job by them. Hearing Darlington's report, honestly, didn't shock me, didn't surprise me. It just gave me the kind of assumption that the Dolphins do want Tua here, but the Dolphins don't want to pay him like a top 5 quarterback. They want to pay him for what they think he's worth, and that's fine. The problem is that when Jared Goff's of the world and Trevor Lawrence of the world, and in all honesty, Justin Herbert's of the world, really haven't done much in this league. They've put up some good numbers. Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 overall pick. He won a playoff game. That's fine. These and Jared Goff actually had one of the most incredible seasons last year with Detroit, so he deserved to get paid. They're dropping the ball with Tua. It's going to cost them much more than they thought. At this point, I wouldn't be shocked if Tua played on that 5th-year option, and then they franchised him for 2 years after that each year, gave him a boatload of money guaranteed for those 2 years. And in 3 years from now, Tua's not a Miami Dolphin anymore. There's no contract there. They go 5th-year option, franchise, and then something happens at that point. They just dropped the ball with Tua. They're not going to get him on the cheap. They have to give him every dollar he wants. He now owns these negotiations because of Chris Greer's blunders at this point. So it didn't shock me. Am I worried? Yeah, because I don't want to go into the season with Skylar Thompson or Mike White as my quarterback if I'm the Miami Dolphins, or bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick again because you're in a desperate situation. You got to pay Tua. It's your fault. You want him here. You got to pay him. But Darlington's report to me didn't shock me at all.
You're right when you say Chris Greer missed a window. Because if the Dolphins truly were hell-bent on getting Tua locked up, that extension would have been on his lap hours after the Chiefs playoff game ended, right? So to me, that suggests it is clear that while the Dolphins want Tua, they also have some reservations about Tua. You said, Zach, that Jared Goff had an amazing season with the Lions and then got a contract for that. Just remind me, where did the Lions season end? At what point of the year did the Lions season come to an end?
Did they make it to the NFC Championship game? Is that what it was?
That's right. They did.
Yeah.
They did. They were Jared Goff and the Lions were in the NFC championship game.
Right.
Okay. So did Chris Greer miss a window? Sure. But let's talk about markets. Let's talk about, well, the market is the market. That was the famous Tua line. The market is the market. Let's talk about markets then. Let's talk about investments. Okay. Let's talk about the show Shark Tank. All right. So you walk in, you got that scumbag Mr. Wonderful and all those pretentious billionaires and Mark Cuban sitting there. Okay. And you have a cup, right? You have a cup that fills up its own water from an unknown source. And that scumbag Mr. Wonderful asks, hey, how do you know that's clean water? And you say, oh, well, typically we're taking it from a water fountain, but you're scrambling because you don't actually know the answer to that. You found a way to present this product, but you don't know where the source is. And so so in your mind, you're like, wow, that's a really good idea, but I also don't want this to become a public health hazard. And so you're the investor on Shark Tank and you say, all right, well, I want to buy in for 48% and make sure that we develop a water cleansing technology. And I want an additional 40% ownership in that. Okay. And that honestly, that seems fair. That seems fair. This is the most random analogy I could possibly come up with.
I love
but
it.
it seems
Keep going.
And that's the point that the Dolphins and Tua are at right now, because the market is the market. The market is the market. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the market real quick. Okay. Joe Burrow, $55 million a year, $219 total guaranteed money, full guaranteed $146. You and I would both agree that Tua is nowhere near the Joe Burrow market, correct?
No, right. No.
Okay. So let's go through Trevor Lawrence. He's fully guaranteed $142, total guaranteed $200 million, average per year, same as Joe Burrow, $55 million. If you can answer this question for me, just how many playoff wins does Trevor Lawrence have, Zach?
I think he's got one, right? One?
He's got one more than Tua Tagovailoa.
Right.
One more than Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, one more division championship than Tua Tagovailoa. Then there's Jared Goff, who we just said, who, by the way, $53 million per year, $170 total guaranteed, $113 fully guaranteed. He played in the whole damn NFC championship and nearly won it just a couple of months ago. Okay. Then you've got Justin Herbert, who 2 years ago signed his extension. He's at $133 fully guaranteed, $193 total guaranteed, and $52.5 average per year. Is he overpaid? Sure, but that was his market based on the numbers that he puts up. Then there's Lamar Jackson. Okay, and boy, did we Tua is entering Lamar Jackson territory in terms of contentiousness of contract negotiations. Lamar Jackson, by the way, two-time MVP, two-time number one seed in the AFC. $135 million guaranteed, $185 million total guarantee, 52 average per year. Then Jalen Hurts, 51 average per year, 179 total guaranteed, 110 fully guaranteed. And then you've got Kyler Murray after that. All right, stay with me.
Right.
The market for Tua, in my opinion, based on accomplishments, based on numbers, and based on health, because let's not forget, the first full season Tua played in after a horrifying injury his final year in college, after broken ribs forced him to miss time in year two, after terrifying concussions, on who you ask, two of them seasons ago, that forced him to miss an awful lot of time. He finally put together 17 games and a playoff game this time around. I think that Tua, his market lives somewhere between Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, in the top end of that and the bottom half of Kyler Murray. So here's my proposal. Tua wants to talk about the market is the market. And I'm acknowledging that Chris Greer made a mistake not getting this locked up early in the offseason, but it leads me to believe that they had already decided they were going to take this cautiously because they didn't want to commit to something they're 97% sure of, but not 100% sure of. If you give Tua Tagovailoa, okay, $258 in total value, okay, $258 total value. That puts you between Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, okay? same thing, right between average per year. The total guaranteed, you know what? I'd be fine. Give him 190. That's above Lamar Jackson and just below Justin Herbert. Fully guaranteed, and this is where a key number is, give him just over Lamar Jackson, fully guaranteed, 136. That's a full $23 million more than Jared Goff's fully guaranteed. I think that's the market for Tua Tagovailoa. But also, Tua is not, based on the market, where Trevor Lawrence is. And I think the Jaguars overpaid him, but he does have a playoff win. And I don't think Tua's market, the market is the market, is Jared Goff, considering Jared Goff came to Detroit and the whole fortunes of the franchise changed. Him and Dan Campbell attached at the hip. The franchise's fortunes changed for the Dolphins when Mike McDaniel and Tyreek Hill showed up, okay? So Tua's market is not there. Tua's market is somewhere in the Lamar Jackson, the Kyler Murray, the Jalen Hurts realm. And if Tua thinks that it should be above that, well, Tua's wrong. That's the way I feel about it.
And let me tell you, that's the way that camp feels. The camp, from everything that you read, from everything that you hear from the Jeff Darlingtons of the world and guys like that, Tua's market, considering himself and his agents, I believe they want to be top 3 to top 5 quarterbacks paid with guarantees and everything. And I think that's where the problem lies too. And that it's both sides coming to a compromise. And that's why I blame Chris Grier at this point for this, because this situation should have been taken care of. You should have just paid him when these other guys were getting paid and given him, like I said, $1 more than Herbert, $10 more than this guy, whatever it was, guaranteed. Everyone just wants the guaranteed money. No one cares about the other money or the years on it. It's how much is the guarantee for. I think they dropped the ball like they did with Christian Wilkins also when they had a chance to get him. And that's where this problem is with Tua. Tua's self, I guess you could say, evaluation with his agents is a lot higher than I think Chris Grier's is and the Miami Dolphins, because he puts himself in that category top 3. He was a top 5 statistical quarterback in every kind of category, passing wise, touchdowns, the whole deal, last year when he played a full season. And that's what the agents are going to the Dolphins with. What you were worried about before last year. Can we play a whole season? We did. When we did play a whole season, look at the numbers we put up. We are the franchise quarterback here, and you're not treating us like it. This is what we want. We want to be paid more than this guy. We want to be paid more than that guy. And Chris Grier had a chance to take care of this all beforehand and put himself in a bad position and put himself in a position where the Dolphins are going to have to pay him like a top 3 to top 5 quarterback, I think, in my mind, to get a deal done. And if they won't and they won't budge, then I think the scenario that I threw up before, where the Dolphins make him play out on the 5th-year option, and then if they really want to keep him around but they still can't negotiate, you franchise him 1 year, then you franchise him another year. You end up paying him like a 3-year, $140 million or $50 million contract with the franchise and the two franchise years and the 5th-year option, and you gave him like a 3-year deal for all guaranteed money, and it's going to play out that way. The Dolphins made their bed, so did Tua, and they just couldn't come together. That's where the problem lies here. It's amazing because all these other teams that have star quarterbacks, or they think they're star quarterbacks, when the negotiations start, they don't last very long because they want to keep the guy around. What's going on in Miami Gardens with what Dolphins management and Tua's camp thinks about themselves here? This is where we're at. We're at a pass where someone has to budge, and I guarantee you the budging side of this is not going to be Tua in his camp. It's going to have to be the Dolphins here if they want to keep him around. It's a terrible situation, I think, because now also, if you're another guy in the Dolphins, a really good player, and you see how they're treating their star quarterback, are you going to want to play for these guys knowing that you're not going to be given what you think you're worth when your contract is ripped? This is just a whole kind of domino effect at this point.
I think, though, the counter to that is, did anybody on the Ravens bail on the Ravens when they were going through the exact same thing with Lamar Jackson, who, in my mind, deserved the money significantly more than the respect significantly more than Tua? And the answer to that is no. And then they locked up Lamar, and they were in the AFC Championship game. Listen, I want Tua to be paid. Tua deserves a big money contract extension. It's just, for me, I don't think Tua deserves the money of an overpaid Trevor Lawrence, who, based on where the cap is going to be 4 or 5 years from now, it's going to end up maybe looking more reasonable. And that's another way to look at this as well. I don't think it pains me to say this, but I don't think he deserves the type of Jared Goff money. Jared Goff has had a more profound impact on his franchise than Tua has had on this Dolphins franchise. But it doesn't change the fact that Tua led the NFL in passing. Right. Tua is the best man to run, in my opinion, the Mike McDaniel offense. That said, I think the Dolphins have more leverage than Tua does. And part of it is Tua, there is no way, and I mean no way, that this man holds out for the season. In fact, I would go as far to say there's no way Tua holds out for longer than a week in training camp. It is not in his DNA. And one of the great things about Tua is the constant, I keep receipts, I want to prove you wrong. He 1,000% is going to approach that just like he has everything else. So I see, I hear all that. I also don't think that this is full panic mode yet. I think the Dolphins, the Dolphins and Tua eventually are going to come to some sort of agreement. And I think it's going to happen before the season starts. But if it doesn't, there is no way Tua's holding out. Not a chance. And then to your franchise tag point. And they certainly could go that route. And I was thinking about this the other day. You remember, the Ravens put a non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, meaning that they could match any offer presented to Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens would receive 2 first-round draft picks for Lamar Jackson. Name one team that, if Tua had the unrestricted franchise tag, name one team that would feel good about giving up 2 first-round picks for Tua Tagovailoa. And that's my point. There are none. And you want to talk about the market is the market. Yeah, the market is the market. Certainly you can look at Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence and say, yeah, the market is the market. But look at the quarterback market. Because elsewhere in the quarterback market, we thought that Justin Fields was going to get the Bears multiple first-round picks. Nary a first-round pick came Chicago's way for Justin Fields. So while the market is the market on the top end, there's a secondary market where quarterbacks with very, very specific strengths live, not total package. And I don't think anybody would argue that Tua Tagovailoa is a total package quarterback.
I just wonder, in what you just said before, how many, if any, teams, if they did put that non-exclusive on there, would offer him a contract, knowing they would not just have to pay him, but they'd have to give up a couple first-round picks. That's interesting, because I thought at that point, realistically, when Lamar did that and they did that to Lamar, I thought there'd be 5 or 6 teams that jumped in there and said, wait a minute, like he's worth 2 first-round picks. We got to pay him anyway, but he's worth 2 first rounds. I wonder if there's a team in the league right now that, if the Dolphins put Tua just on the market right now and said 2 first-round picks and you could have them, how many teams would call and say, oh, let's look into that right now? Like, I'd have to really research that, because I can't think of a team. I can't think of a team off the top of my head that would salvage the next 2 years looking for a quarterback and thinking that Tua is the guy. Like, that's a weird one too. Right.
The most important thing to do when living in Tua world, and I do, I wake up and I thank the Lord for the opportunity to have Tua as my quarterback. I appreciate him. I think he's the best man to run the Mike McDaniel system. I do. I truly believe that. But part of living in the Tua world is also acknowledging that the man is not perfect. Okay? And I understand he's been through a lot, and he wants to make the money he thinks that he earned with a full 17-game season and leading the NFL in passing. Here's the problem. A deal like this is sort of a first contract achievement award, full first contract achievement award. And I would argue Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence and their ability to stay on the field and the numbers they put up as a whole, as opposed to 1 year of Tua, gave them a little bit more leverage and not to mention ceilings. We talked about ceilings with the Knicks. I would argue the ceiling of Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence is greater than that of Tua, which is fine. But the first step to living in Tua world and doing it sanely is to accept and acknowledge that there are limitations with Tua, and that the market for Trevor Lawrence and for Jared Goff, who got a Lions trade contract achievement award, is a little bit different. The market for those guys and the market for Tua are a little bit different. There are layers and tiers to NFL quarterback markets. There's just not one singular market. I think that is probably the nuanced and frustrating place that Tua lives in right now. But I still think it's going to get done. Both things can be correct. Chris Greer, he missed a window, but that also led me to believe that they truly they weren't 100% sure. Because their eyeballs show them, hey, there's a ceiling with Tua, but we like Tua and we trust Tua with the keys, but we also want to make sure that we're doing something smart from a business perspective. And it sucks, but Tua doesn't deserve a Brinks truck in my mind. I love him.
Right.
He deserves to be the Dolphins starting quarterback, but he doesn't deserve the Brinks truck. His market's different, and he needs to understand that, and his people need to understand that.
Well, my hot take here would be that Brinks truck is the only way that this problem gets solved. The only way that this problem, I think, gets solved on both sides, or both sides come to an agreement and have it all done, is when he gets paid to be a top 3 paid quarterback in this league, top 5 at worst. With all those names that we were going through before, with all the average per year salaries, when this is said and done, when it's signed, sealed, and delivered, and Tua is the franchise quarterback for the next 3 to 5 years, whatever it is, he will be being paid as a top 3, and at worst, top 5 quarterback in the league. And I think that's the only way this gets done. As bad as that sounds, as Brinks truck crazy as that might sound, I think that's the only way it gets done.
Show me Dolphins quarterback Quinn Ewers. We're on our way, kiddos.
What about Arch Manning? Wouldn't you just draft Arch Manning just for the hell of it? I mean,
that's true.
At that point, let's just get the lineage in here. Let's just start drafting guys like that. And to be honest, years ago when Omar Kelly said this to me, and I kind of laughed at him, when he said that he would draft in the first or second round every year a quarterback until they found a quarterback. And I was like, why would you waste that? Why would you do that? You know what? It's probably a genius move until you find somebody, especially, I mean, maybe not in the first round because you have a guaranteed 5-year deal there, but why not draft 1 or 2 quarterbacks every year if you don't think you have your guy until you can hopefully find something? Because you know what? You know who the geniuses of the NFL right now are? It's that team in San Francisco that outside of trading about 19 picks for Trey Lance and then trading him out of there for nothing, and Jimmy Garoppolo's crazy deal, their starting quarterback was picked 259 or whatever it is, Brock Purdy. They look like the geniuses of all the geniuses for what they did. But don't forget, before that, they made some shitty trades to get the quarterbacks they had, and none of them worked out. So just get a guy every year. Dolphins, if you're not 100% on board with Tua every year, 3rd or 4th round, draft a guy till you figure out what you could do with it until you get your guy. At this point, it doesn't matter. But like I said, the hot take is that Brinks truck will be in Davie somewhere in Miami Gardens, dropping off the top 3 or top 5 most guaranteed money to Tua, and that's the only way it gets done. Or we're looking at franchise years coming up, I think, for Tua.
It actually hurt the Dolphins that Tua led the NFL in passing last year. Because other than that, they would have had full leverage to dictate the deal that they wanted from him. Brock Purdy is not going to go through the same type of controversy with the 49ers because there's not a chance that he gets paid in the top 3 NFL quarterbacks. And with Brock Purdy, I feel like if you don't come to an agreement as a top 6, top 7 paid quarterback, the 49ers will just look elsewhere and plug in. I don't think it's going to come to that with the Dolphins. But I could see that happening with the 49ers, and I maybe it would happen with the Dolphins. But again, I think Tua is the guy. And I think the Mike McDaniel system is just a tad different with all the speed than what the Shanahan system. McDaniel's like this, but like turbo. And you need a guy who is the best in timing, the guy with the quickest release, and Tua is absolutely that over Brock Purdy. So there's a little bit of a difference to this, but the leading the NFL in passing kind of put the Dolphins a little bit on their heels, but I still think the Dolphins have the leverage in this. And again, if you want to talk about the market is the market, there needs to be an understanding from the Tua side that Tua's market is not the same as the Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff market. For a multitude of reasons. Again, ceiling, but also durability. One healthy season does not suddenly make a quarterback durable, in my honest football opinion. I have a feeling throughout the summer there's going to be a lot more Tua segments. That's just me, and maybe I'm wrong with that prognostication, but I'm sense that we're probably going to that point. Next time we talk, next week, because of 4th of July holiday, it's going to be a little bit spotty for us here on By All Accounts. I'm curious to see over the next 72 hours or so where Matthew Tkachuk continues his warrior path. I will be amongst the masses, the hundreds of thousands, presumably people that's going to be in Fort Lauderdale. I don't like being around a lot of people, so I'm making an ultimate sacrifice Sunday for the Panthers championship parade. If we have an episode next week, it'll probably be late next week, so we'll cover that. You'll know, for those of you subscribed, when it's there. Don't forget to subscribe at youtube.com/@allaccountsshow, youtube.com/@allaccountsshow. I know, Zach, you're going away for a little bit. Have yourself a great Independence Day getaway with the wife and son, and we'll come back for our regularly scheduled Tua takes late next week or the week after that.
Just wait till this happens and then camp opens up. Oh my God, Ken, this is going to be the only story locally that's down here. Now that the Panthers season is done, the Heat season and the draft is done, no one cares about the Marlins, really. No offense, Marlins. You know, I do love you as an organization somewhat. Inter Miami, whatever's going on, like this Tua is going to be front, center, number one topic until it gets done. And the longer it goes, the more we're going to talk about Tua. Guaranteed money, Tua. Guaranteed money, Tua. Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, guaranteed money, Tua. That's what it's going to be like for the next month, I believe.
YouTube.com/@allaccountsshow. YouTube.com/@allaccountsshow. RSS.com/podcast/allaccountsshow for the audio only version of By All Accounts. He's Zach. I'm Ken. Have a great 4th of July. Talk to you after. Bye-bye.
Bye, Canada.